you are wearing a mask. And we have many, many different masks. Because really, what we're doing here is we're acting. This is a great play. The great play of life. And we are very dedicated to our roles. I'm sure you've noticed this. You look around, you can see how dedicated people are to their roles, to the point where they will kill another human being to maintain their role so that they don't break character. Pretty insane. And you might ask yourself, okay, because I know I asked myself this, if we're all wearing masks, and there's so many different masks that we wear throughout the day, throughout the weeks, throughout the different phases in our life, which one is us? Which one of those versions of us is the real us, or at least closest to the real us? Is there one? Is there not one? Are we just empty? And I don't want to answer that for you. But what I can say is that you can remove the mask. And when you remove the mask, you'll see a little bit how the mask is formed. And the more times you observe how the mask is formed, the less power it has over you. I think you know what I mean by power over you, because a lot of us, me at least, you can tell me if this is you too, which I think it's fair to say most of us, experience this mask seeming to have control over us. Which is funny, because you might ask, who is the us or the I that the mask is controlling? It almost implies that you already know that you're not the mask, but what is it that the mask is controlling? What is the real I? You have a sense of it. And a clue is desire. There are certain desires that we have that feel stronger than the mask. For me personally, the desire for freedom of expression, the desire for knowledge of truth, the desire for peace and happiness. Now, these desires spring from the source of who we are, and they manifest as different flavors of desire, you could say. One person's desire for peace and happiness might manifest as them wanting a Lamborghini. It's not that they actually want a Lamborghini. What they want is the feeling of security, of happiness that they think that they're going to get from possessing something called a Lamborghini. And what's funny is if you gave that person a Lamborghini, they would give themselves permission, that's what it is, it's a permission slip, to feel those emotions, and they would feel those emotions. But they would find that not so long after they got their Lamborghini, those emotions would fade, and they would quickly settle back into the mask that they previously had that was seeking happiness outside of themselves. And so now they want a McLaren. The Lamborghini, it's kind of lame, honestly. Been there, done that, drove it around a couple times, overrated. Get me a McLaren. Now they got to work however long and hustle and bustle so they can get a McLaren. You can see a little bit the pattern that can play out here. A lot of us don't want to acknowledge that, though, because that would imply a lot of things that we don't want to acknowledge. That would imply that maybe a lot of the things that we think we want, we don't really want. And it makes you wonder where these things came from, where these desires came from. Where did these masks come from? These masks that seem to desire these things, where did those come from? And that is the truly epic story of your life. How your masks were formed. Maybe you have an idea, but if not, I'll share with you how they were formed. You were born, and immediately you were named. Your name is a mask given to you by whoever named you. And right after you were born, the people around you began calling you this name. Now, at first, these are just sounds in a homogeneous glob of undifferentiated sensations, because you're a baby. You don't know what anything is. You're not able to comprehend anything. But this one sound repeats itself in a certain way so many times that it starts to develop form. Isaiah, Isaiah, Isaiah. All of a sudden, you start to recognize that sound outside of all the other sounds. You're able to recognize that sound, something familiar. You haven't yet identified with it as being you. But eventually, you make the correlation. Your parents look at you when they make that sound. And they only look at you when they make that sound. And then they make other specific sounds when they look at each other. And then all of a sudden, our brains are very intelligent. Even a baby starts to notice these patterns and build associations. This happens completely unconsciously. Your intelligence happens without your effort. You can observe it in a baby. And eventually, the baby realizes that that's its name. I realized my name was Isaiah. And then from there, the first little bit of ego is formed. And it has all the tools necessary to continue to form the mask. And so now maybe you go to kindergarten and all of a sudden you're introduced to all these new people, these new children, and you're not entirely sure how to interact with them. And so your ego experiments. Maybe you say something. Maybe you get a reaction that you like, and so you make note of that. And so you repeat that. You say that thing in that way another time. Or maybe you get a reaction you don't like. You don't repeat that. And slowly but surely you can see how your mind is taking note of all the experiences that you're having. And it's forming an identity. It's forming a set of rules about how reality works that you can follow so that you can operate and survive in this world. That is what the mask was created for. It was for your survival, so that you could exist here without dying. Not just physically, but mentally. Being shunned, being not loved is the equivalent, if not worse, honestly, for a human than death. Humans fear loneliness more than they fear death. And so the mask was formed. And many masks were formed as you learned that you actually couldn't be one way with everybody. You realize that you have to be one way with your parents to make them happy, that you have to be one way with your classmates to make them happy, that you have to be one way with your teachers and your spouse and your whatever. And soon enough, you've lost yourself. You've lost who you really are because you're too busy upholding all of these masks. You don't even remember why. I'm here to remind you who you are. You are not the mask. This is a great thing. This is a liberating thing because it means that you're not limited. That what you thought limited you before was actually just a part of the mask. And that's why you see people who seem to have lives that are better, more happy, more joyous. And, the mind looks at that and might think that is their situation that is producing that joy, that happiness. And it's very sneaky because it can seem that way because it tends to go hand in hand. You see very happy people and they tend to be in very nice situations. And so you think, okay, the situation must be what made them happy. My situation sucks. It's actually the other way around. The more at peace you are with yourself, the happier you are with yourself. And you can actually make this correlation quite logically if you can breathe and see it. When you're at peace, your nervous system regulates, your mind regulates. You no longer see reality in terms of separation from your goals. You no longer look around and see problems everywhere because it is your perception. In the same way you buy a new car and you start seeing that car everywhere. The moment that you identify with a problem, you start seeing that problem everywhere. But really, reality is chock full of solutions and problems. And it's just what perception, what lens, what mask you decide to put on that allows you to see either the solutions or the problems. But when you're at peace, your mind is actually in prime condition to view reality as solutions, to view the paths that will take you where you truly desire to be. Because you're already at peace. Because you're not needing, craving, wanting things outside of yourself in order to fulfill yourself. You're already at peace. And so further peace and further expressions of peace becomes easy for you to create. Easy, effortless. It's like when they say the more money you have, the more money you can make, because now you have millions of dollars. You can just invest those millions of dollars and make more millions of dollars with way less effort than it might have taken you to make the first $1 million. But the thing is, peace is free. You have peace within you. And the way you find that is by removing the mask. I invite you to take off the mask now. And you don't have to do anything to take off the mask. That's the beautiful thing about who you are, is you already are what is behind the mask. Notice now that all that exists is this moment. And you are aware of this moment. And you've always been aware of this moment throughout everything, throughout all the stories that played out, throughout everything that you've ever experienced. There has been this stillness, this quietness, always watching, always aware, completely unaffected. Your awareness hasn't gotten a scratch on it. Your body, maybe, bruised, scarred, lost limbs, whatever. You may have experienced horrible, traumatic things that led your mind to believe scary things about reality. But that awareness, that stillness, has not changed. That is who you are. The more that you can come into contact with that through meditation, through simply acknowledging it, like we are doing now, the more peace you feel, the more happiness you feel. And the more life starts to play out in beautiful, magical ways that you couldn't even dream for yourself now. Life is a beautiful play. And you're an actor here, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to play your role the way you were meant to play it, you have to acknowledge all of the ways that you were playing somebody else's role so that you can release that, let go of that, and finally step into the role that was always for you, that you know and feel deep down is for you. And only you know what that is. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. If you want one-on-one coaching, I'm offering that. You can take a free call. The link is in the description.